Hey guys, what's cracking? It is Krakenation here, coming at you guys today with the next installment of our competitive analysis series for the Generation 9, all the new Pokemon released in Generation 9 for the Paldea region. Guys, I am so excited to be doing this series. I'm really glad that we've been able to pick up where this channel left off and give you guys some content to help you guys boost your ability to understand these Pokemon in competitive play. Really use them in the utmost of their capability, hopefully, or at least learn where to start when you're using this Pokemon and when you're trying to transition to using them in a competitive format. Guys, as always, if you enjoy this video, make sure to go down in the comment section, let me know what you guys think of Ting-Lu, who we're going to be covering today, as well as if you really think you want to keep getting some of this content, drop a subscription, drop a like, all that stuff is always really appreciated. Without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get into it. Ting-Lu is a dark and ground type legendary that was released in the Paldea region. This thing is really weird looking. It's got like a bowl for a head. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but its ability is Vessel of Ruin, which lowers all other Pokemon on the field special attack by 25%. So now, notably, this also applies to doubles, where it lowers your teammate as well as your opponent's Pokemon. So everything else has lower special defense by lower special attack by 25% the moment Ting-Lu's on the field. So it's going to be useful to help it boost its special defensive capabilities in singles play, and when you're using it in doubles play, you probably want to pair it with a physical attacker so that it's not having to deal with the special attack drop. If your teammate, you're running like, I don't know, let's say like all of a sudden I can't think of a single special attacker. Let's say you're running it with Skeledirge, for example, in Generation 9. You're going to lower your Skeledirge's special attack. That's not going to be quite as good, so you want to pair it with a physical attacker instead. Dark and Ground type is a pretty interesting typing, where it allows it to hit quite a number of things pretty hard. It's got a pretty good move pool to do it. Unfortunately, it does not get like knockoff these days, but it's still pretty good move pool typing overall. However, also I want to say that even though this Pokemon is overall a defensive Pokemon that we're going to look at stats in a little bit, Dark and Ground type is a pretty decent offensive typing, but a pretty lackluster defensive typing. Ground types tend to be pretty good defensively, but Dark is a pretty bad defensive type when paired with Ground, at least. So you end up with a lot of really common weaknesses to a lot of really common offensive types, things like Ice and Water and Fairy and Fighting and Bugs clicking U-turn. So there's a lot of big weaknesses that kind of mitigate its bulk. But speaking of which, let's go ahead and take a look at this thing's stats. So right off the bat, you've got this absolutely monstrous combo of defensive potential. 155 HP is monstrous, and then 130 defense is extremely good as well. So you've got just a ton of physically defensive potential in this Ting-Lu. 110 attack, also very good. Lets it fire off attacks and that your opponent cannot just be coming into those attacks for free. 80 special defense is a little below average, but we got to keep in mind that Vessel of Ruin lowers your opponent's special attack stat when you're running it in singles or doubles, and so that special defense stat that looks a little lackluster at 80 all of a sudden becomes quite a bit more respectable when we factor in the fact that we're lowering our opponent's special attack capabilities. So it ends up making Ting-Lu a very, very powerful mixed wall, or more of like a mixed tank, because unfortunately what holds it back a little bit is a complete lack of recovery, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. 50 special attack, you're obviously not going to be using that. 45 speed, this thing is slow as dirt, but it's a ground type. But that's okay, because you are able to take hits quite well as a Ting-Lu with that monstrous defense and HP combination, as well as the ability that helps mitigate your otherwise mediocre special defense. So you've got a great mixed tanky Pokemon here in Ting-Lu. Taking a look at some notable moves that you might want to consider running on a Ting-Lu. Earthquake's going to be your go-to stab, and then on the dark side, Throat Chop is going to be your go-to stab. It's got a few other options as well, though, as far as coverage goes. Body Press is pretty good on this Pokemon because it uses that 130 defense stat. It's a fighting move. And then is because, as you might know, Body Press allows you to use your defense instead of your offense for your calculation in damage. Heavy Slam is quite good on this Pokemon as a steel type move because this thing is extremely heavy, if you look at the stats on it. It does also get Spikes and Stealth Rock, so it can be a really good hazard setter, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, which may be one of its best niches, is to just be bulky and set up hazards. Got access to both. It also has things like Memento and Taunt, which are both quite useful little, little utility moves in a pinch. Ruination is kind of cool. It's a signature move on these 4 legendaries, where Ruination is basically Super Fang, but Dark type, and that's going to be pretty helpful. We've seen Super Fang or things like Nature's Madness on the top boost in the past get a lot of usage, so Ruination I think is going to be another move that you can definitely consider. For example, if opponents are bringing in like bulky flying types that might beat Ting-Lu pretty comfortably normally, Ruination might be a good option to try and dent those. Stone Edge is another coverage move this thing gets. Zen Headbutt another one, but overall, your 2 stabs, especially Earthquake's going to be obviously very good, and then you've got those utility moves that you can make use of. So taking a look at how we can put these together to make some sets. First set I have here is the utility tank set. We're going to run leftovers like I talked about. Unfortunately, Ting-Lu does not get any recovery. Now, if Ting-Lu did get recovery, it would be an absolute monstrosity of a machine, but it kind of everything must have an Achilles heel, right? Every mon's going to have a kryptonite. So Ting-Lu, its lack of recovery holds it back, so we're going to run leftovers to try to give it some passive healing over time. Vessel of Ruin, again, obviously is the ability of lowering your opponent's special offenses. We're going to run max HP, max defense, and impish nature. Now, if you were trying to consider a more specially defensive variant, you definitely could do that. Keep in mind, again, it is, despite its 80 special defense stat, it is actually a pretty good specially defensive tank as well. So you could run 252 HP, 252 special defense, and then you would run, I think it's a bold nature off the top of my head, but the plus special defense minus special attack nature. It might not be bold actually. It's either bold or calm. I'm mixing them up off the top of my head, something like that. But you would run the nature that's plus special defense minus special attack if you wanted to run a specially defensive variant, which of this exact same set. We're obviously going to run Earthquake as our go-to attack move. Then you can run Throat Chop or Ruination if you want, either way as a secondary attack move. Spikes and Stealth Rock are really good to make this thing just a really, really reliable hazard stacker. As we've talked about, a lot of sweepers appreciate good hazard stacking teammates, so Ting-Lu could be a very good teammate for one of those. And also what's nice about Ting-Lu is 110 attack stat coming off with powerful base power moves like Earthquake. You're actually not super passive. You are able to like dent things that come in and not be a complete walking trash can as far as your offenses go. So definitely I think this is very possibly the most viable variant of Ting-Lu, will be somewhere along this line. But we're also going to talk about another set here, and that's going to be the more offensively oriented set. We're going to run leftovers again here just to offset some healing, but you also could easily run Choice Band on this set. For example, you could run Life Orb. I don't think I would run Life Orb on this set. I would probably run either Choice Band or Leftovers. It's probably your go-to if you want more longevity or you want more immediate power. I think those are your 2 best options. Again, Vessel of Ruin, max HP, max attack, Adamant Nature to maximize how hard this thing is hitting. And this thing's going to be able to hit quite hard, especially if you decide to run the set with a Choice Band instead. You're going to be able to hit quite hard. We're just going to run your 2 basic stabs. We're not going to run Ruination because we are an offensive set this time. And then we're going to run Heavy Slam, hit some fairy types really, really hard, for example, and then that might come in on your dark typing to try to beat you. And then also Body Press is quite good as well. Just hitting opposing darks and whatnot is quite excellent. So this is a pretty good set overall here, I think, and this is definitely a very viable. If you wanted to go offensive, I think this would be the way you wanted to go with your Ting-Lu. This set really just relies on sponging attacks and dishing back hits hard hits, I should say. Leftovers, again, you want to make that consideration. If you want longevity, probably want to go Leftovers. If you want more offense, Choice Band might be the way to go for you. You could also be sneaky and cheeky and run something like Soft Sand or Ground Plate, whatever you want to do, or something like that, a Berry, but I think Leftovers or Choice Band are probably your 2 best bets. Taking a look at pros and cons of Ting-Lu, terrific mixed defenses like we've talked about over and over again that can invest either way, so you can go physically defensive, especially defensive, and do quite well on either side, which is quite neat. Good offensive stabs and moves, like we said, Earthquake, it doesn't get knockoff, would be awesome if it did, but Earthquake is really awesome. Throat Chop, it's a good stab combination overall, and then has a good utility move pool. Things like Stealth Rock, Spikes, Rest, Sleep Talk, if you wanted to go down that route, actually is also quite good and allows Ting-Lu to somehow get some kind of recovery in, right? So that's definitely an option as well. Things like I said, Memento, Taunt, all good options. Now, unfortunately, talking about cons, lack of recovery leaves it vulnerable to chip damage. That's going to leave you very much, in a spot where Ting-Lu has to take hits, and over the course of battle, it's very easy to get worn down and might not be able to take all the hits you needed to take eventually. Pair that with some common offensive weaknesses like we talked about earlier. It's weak to a lot of very common offensive types, so things like Ice, Water, Fighting, Fairy, and U-turns it'll be weak to, so those will do a good chunk to it every single time, and then you're going to be in a situation where you're taking these big chunk hits and probably not able to recover very much off. And that's also coupled that with a not terrific base stat. Now, what's kind of nice is that because Ting-Lu's not outspeeding anybody. You're not going to pretend to be outspeeding anybody. So you're going to be able to just invest in your attack stat if you want to go offensive, and that's going to help your not terrific base attack stat be better. But otherwise, 110 is a little underwhelming on a Pokemon this slow sometimes. But you can, again, invest in that, and it has good base power moves. So overall, I think you're going to be able to make use of that, and that's not a very big con, to be completely honest. That's a little nitpicky. Taking a look at some team options, sweepers that appreciate hazard setting are going to be very, very appreciative that Ting-Lu can set up Stealth Rocks and Spikes. So if you're like looking at something like a Meowscarada or a Quackoval, those Pokemon are really, really good sweepers, especially something like Quackoval. And then you can bring in Ting-Lu to try and set up those hazards, those Stealth Rocks, those Spikes to really chip things down so that Quackoval can get a sweep off, or any other sweeper for that matter. Wish Passers can give it longevity if you're in a format that allows a wide variety of Wish Passers. Something like a Chansey or Blissey can Wish Pass into Ting-Lu and help it keep its health up so it has more longevity over the course of a match. Bulky Waters can help really, really a lot to help it take on some of its weaknesses. So Bulky Water will help with opposing water types, opposing ice types, for example. So a good Bulky Water teammate can be a really nice help for Ting-Lu's longevity as well. Now, big threats, bulky flying types that can recover off the damage that Ting-Lu's able to dish out. Stone Edge is fine, but it misses sometimes, and it's not necessarily coming off a really high attack stat. It's not stab, so you're going to have a tough spot with Ting-Lu sometimes taking on these bulky flying types that can then proceed to chip you down, heal off the damage you're dealing to them with the recovery, especially if they're faster than you, which they probably are. You're going to be clicking, they're going to click Roost, your Stone Edge isn't going to do anything, you're going to be in a little bit of a pickle there. Hazards and chip damage, like we talked about, are going to be probably the end-all be-all of Ting-Lu's kind of the bane of its existence, I should say, because just it doesn't have recovery. Any Pokemon that's a defensive Pokemon like Ting-Lu kind of wants to be is going to really, really miss having recovery when it doesn't have it. Guys, I do overall think Ting-Lu seems like a really cool Pokemon that's going to be a really good, supportive, bulky tank for a lot of teams. If you are running sweepers, I think that utility set could be a no-brainer for a lot of those styles of teams and could be very, very effective. I'm really excited to try this Pokemon out. It's my kind of Pokemon, to be completely honest with you. I love these kind of like tanky, wall breakery. This isn't necessarily a wall break, but these like tanky mons, these slow, relatively hard hitters, I really enjoy that take hits pretty well. So I'm definitely, it's a Pokemon that I'm very excited to be using. Let me know down in the comment section below what Pokemon you want to see next, guys. I want to hear all the feedback you guys have for sure. I want to know what you guys want to see. Let me know if you have a different set in Ting-Lu in mind, or maybe you want to see a different direction. Also, if you're interested in Generation 9 competitive play, definitely go join our Discord server down in the description box below, where we're going to be having a lot of conversations. We have a great community where we talk about competitive Pokemon. We also have our Generation 9 Draft League. Draft Classic Season 9's coming up pretty close here, where you'll be able to draft and play against some really high-level opponents and try to experiment with these Pokemon in a draft format if that's something you're interested in. So otherwise, I will see you guys later. Thank you for stopping by, and Krakenation out.